On last Friday's program, I interviewed Tom Vesely, a type 1 diabetic who has made tremendous strides in controlling his glucose levels as a result of using a CGM, a continuous glucose monitor. Today, I'm going to share a little more from that interview as he shares some of the pros and cons of CGMs, and after we listen to a little more from Tom, I'm going to tell about what I did not like of Nick Jonas's commercial, which aired during the Super Bowl about the Dexcom G6 CGM. Sorry, Nick Jonas, I'm going to have to take you to task on this one. It strikes me that you and I are pretty similar. I'm sure there are ways in which we're very different, but you found by testing your blood sugar a lot through the CGM that there was a definite relationship between carbohydrates and blood sugar rising and spiking. I found it through Mike the meter. I guess we'll call it the CGM Charlie, the meter, since C is the first letter of the CGM. So you found it through Charlie, I found it through Mike, but we both came to the same conclusion, that is that carbohydrates spike blood sugar. And I mean, it's true. Anybody with either a Charlie or a Mike, any kind of a meter is going to find that out, and it motivated you. So let's talk about hypos these days. Do you get as many hypos as you did before, now that you're watching your glucose more carefully?
Well, I still have hypo from time to time, and I would say the amount is much lower. It's very, very limited, because one of the functionalities I use with my continuous glucose monitor is alarms, and so I can set the alarm. I can decide what my threshold should be when the CGM will send me an alarm on my phone that I'm dropping. So as an example, I can tell my CGM to alarm me when my blood sugar is crossing 80 milligram per deciliter line or 70 milligram per deciliter. So in my case, I use 80, but this you can customize whatever is appropriate in everyone's case. So I think this on its own, as a warning, I could be hypo in 10 minutes, helps me to treat that low a little bit in advance and avoid it in most of the cases.
Let's talk about any negatives. Do you see any negatives at all to using a CGM, or do you think pretty much every diabetic ought to, or at least every type 1 and probably a lot of type 2s? What do you think?
Well, I would say the biggest negative of a CGM is that I've been telling you for the whole time that is measuring your glucose. The method that CGM is using these days to measure the glucose is it measures the glucose from interstitial fluid, and interstitial fluid is not blood. And I think what is important to say to all the viewers who are watching is that the glucose in interstitial fluid is a little bit delayed behind the glucose that is in blood. So there is approximately 10-minute delay. The information from CGM is 10-minute delayed from the information from glucometer. And so this is a potential negative. But when one knows that, one can work with that. I think oftentimes there is a misunderstanding when people don't take this into account. They might misunderstand the data that they are getting from their continuous glucose monitor. In my view, this is a minor negative. You could say another negative is that you need to have a sensor on your body for 24 hours a day. So I have it here on my arm. I hope you can see it. I will show it on the camera. But it's a little sensor. It's like a coin on your upper arm, in case of the Freestyle Libre one that I use. And so I have it on 24/7. It doesn't bother me, but someone might be bothered by other people seeing it on your body and asking you if you're a cyborg or what it is.
Well, I would say those are small prices to pay to get the information that you need to get. And really, just knowing that, okay, this may not be my current glucose, but it's 10 minutes earlier, really no big deal at all. So you shared with me that there are some mistakes people make when they try to use these CGMs. Tell us about those. What are some of the common mistakes people make?
From the question that I get from people who watch my channel, I think the biggest mistake is focusing too much on the absolute number of blood glucose that the CGM is showing. I think the biggest value of the CGM is that it's giving you the trend, and you can see the trend. You can see an arrow if your blood glucose is going up, going down, or staying stable in that point in time. And so for me, this is the most important information that I get from the CGM, because I know when I'm dropping, I need to eat. I know when I'm going up, I need to take insulin. I know when I'm stable, everything is good. And the most important indicator for me of my compensation is time in range. So on the CGM, we have a range that is ideal range that we want our blood glucose to be within. It's typically between 80 and 120, 140, depending on one's needs and doctor's recommendations. And so trying to spend 100% time in this range is really what should be the goal, not focusing on is my blood glucose right now 70 or 120, but how much time I'm spending in that ideal range. And if I see some alarming trend in terms of blood glucose going up or down quickly, am I able to react so that I stay within that ideal range? And so if people focus too much on the number, they tend to overreact. They tend to just make too radical of a treatment decision. So that is something to be careful about.
Yeah, well, let's close with the idea with this thought. You're describing how you watch your glucose very carefully. You adjust for it if it's too high, too low, whatever. Do you still have time, Tom, for a full life, or does this take up so much of your life you can't really live a full life and you're just constantly worried about your diabetes?
No, I live a perfectly full life. I made diabetes part of my life. I told you at the beginning I was hiding my diabetes. Now I'm actually proudly showing it. I'm streaming to the world about it, and so it became part of my life. I actually now live full life through my YouTube channel and my diabetes. But even if I didn't have that, with the technology that we have, so many things are automated. You get these alarms automatically. You can use different mobile apps on your phone, and I talk about it in some of my videos, that remind you when you should do what, and you can put your diabetes management to some extent on autopilot because of the technology that we have.
Okay, now for a few words from me. I mentioned at the beginning that I would comment on Nick Jonas's commercial for the Dexcom G6 CGM. Now, I hate to rain on Nick's parade, but there was something about that commercial for the CGM that I did not like. In fact, not at all. And that was, are you ready? It was the condescending and mocking tone about the traditional glucose meter. I guess you could say I've grown fond of Mike the meter, and I don't like him dissed the way Nick did. Nick announced that we have drones that can deliver packages to us, and then he says with scorn, and people with diabetes are still pricking their fingers? What? As though anybody who still pricks their fingers and uses a traditional glucose meter is living in the Stone Age and is hopelessly backward and not a little bit stupid. Nick then goes on to say, we've got self-driving cars, robots that vacuum, we visited Mars, and Fingersticks? Really? Again, he uses that mocking tone that says, "Are you stupid or just ignorant?" Well, Nick, here's my response to you. There are millions of diabetics all over the world that do not have $300 a month to spend on a CGM. It's true we have self-driving cars, but why do you suppose the vast majority of people don't have them? In addition to the fact that they still don't work as good as they should, even if they worked perfectly, most people couldn't possibly afford one. No matter how good the product, if you can't afford it, you can't afford it. Just to get started with the Dexcom G6 that Nick is promoting, it's going to cost you around $350 to $400. But what Dexcom really wants you to do is to subscribe to their service. They'll send you all the sensors and all the supplies you need on a regular basis. But the cost of this service is around $300 a month. Now, if $300 a month is just small change to you, then by all means go for it. But most of us, myself included, could not possibly justify spending that much on a CGM. A standard glucometer was God's means of delivering me from runaway blood sugar way back in 2002, and it's been working for me ever since. My A1C and fasting glucose levels have gone down rather than up, and I'm not even close to the diabetic range by the numbers. I am living proof that diabetes does not have to be chronic and progressive. Another thing Nick seems to imply in this commercial is the terrible experience of sticking our fingers and drawing blood. To use Nick's words right back at him, really? I mean, really, Nick? Would you like a little cheese with that wine? I want to share an experience I had some years ago as an illustration of what I'm talking about, and while I do this, I'm going to test my blood sugar with one of those old-fashioned glucometers, one of those terrible, horrible, evil fingersticks that Nick so detests and mocks. Okay, so the story is this. Years ago, and I'm talking quite a few years ago, they came out with something called the DVD recorder. Up until then, if you wanted to record TV programs and movies off your TV, you would have to record with a VHS machine. But then they came out with the DVD recorders, and I just loved them. I said to myself, man, I will get one of those as soon as I can. But to my dismay, they were costing around $2,000, I think, when they first came out. And after that, okay, here we go, $99. After that, they came down a bit, and they were down to $1,000. I thought, well, $1,000 is better than $2,000, but still way too high. No way I'm going to pay $1,000 for a DVD recorder. I waited a while longer. Finally, they got down to $200, and I jumped on them, and I got me a DVD recorder and started recording movies and shows and all kinds of things. I just thought it was great. Well, that was then. This is now, and nowadays everybody's got a DVR, so they're not such a big thing. I don't even have one anymore. But the point is, at $2,000, there's no way I'm going to get one. At $1,000, there's no way I'm going to get one. At $200, you bet I'm going to get one. So sometimes price is going to determine whether something is realistic or not. Now, the point I've just made by testing my glucose while talking to you is that when Nick Jonas mocks the idea of fingersticking as a terrible, evil, horrible, no good thing, he's really picking the weakest of all the arguments for getting a CGM. Now, I know this commercial was written by the Dexcom company, and Nick was simply saying what he was told to say, so I don't hold it against him. In fact, I've seen Nick as a coach on The Voice, and he seems like a really nice guy, so no offense, Nick. And there are reasons why a CGM is preferable to a traditional glucometer if you can afford it. But avoiding sticking your fingers is not one of those reasons. If I can test my glucose while talking before thousands of people on YouTube, you can probably do it when you're not on camera and you're not before thousands of people. Now, there's no doubt that when you use a CGM, you get more information, and you can get it minute by minute and hour by hour about your blood sugar levels, and that is a tremendous thing. So I'm not against CGMs, not at all. But until they become affordable to common men and women who are not rich, I'm going to continue to stress Mike, the ordinary, good old-fashioned glucose meter. Now, I'm sure Nick Jonas could buy a dozen Dexcom G6s and it wouldn't faze him a bit. But for most of us, to pay $300 a month for a subscription is either impossible, not practical, or not justifiable. So, who should use CGMs? Well, for starters, as Tom Vesely demonstrated, they can be real game changers for type 1 diabetics. If I were a type 1, I would, if at all possible, bite that bullet and use them a lot. And secondly, if you've just found out that you have sky-high diabetes, even if you're a type 2, a CGM could really help you figure things out in a hurry. So even if you could not pay year-round for CGM devices, if you could just afford to use a CGM for about a month, you might be well ahead of where you'd be without one. Again, the more information you can get about how your glucose levels rise and fall, the better equipped and the better motivated you'll be to fix your diabetes rapidly. As for me, I may buy one in the future just to demonstrate to you how they work and how my own blood sugar levels rise and fall. But for my own purposes, I just don't need one. I already know that a single potato can raise my glucose over 200 in an hour's time, and that 2 bananas can do the same. I already know that Welch's grape juice spikes my blood sugar more than Coca-Cola. How do I know this? Good old Mike the Meter has told me. I already know that if I focus on meat and low-carb vegetables, my glucose levels will stay in line. Now, a CGM could give me a minute-by-minute and blow-by-blow description of this, but it would only confirm what I've already figured out a long time ago. So don't look for me to be signing up for a $300 a month subscription for a CGM service anytime soon. Now, if the CGMs come down low enough, like the DVD recorders did, I will get one and may start using them regularly. But I'm not so sure that'll happen in my lifetime. Maybe so, maybe not. And if not, that's okay. My good buddy Mike has given me the knowledge I need to stave off diabetes, and I have no reason to suppose that what I've been doing the last 18 years is going to stop working for whatever time I have left. Okay, well, that's my 2 cents about Nick Jonas's commercial and the CGMs. My advice is, if you can afford it, get one. If you can't afford to use one all the time, you might want to consider using them for about a month or so, just to learn all you can. One of the things they will tell you in a hurry is when your blood sugar tends to hit its peak, and to me, that's a tremendous thing to know. But if you can't afford one at all, stick with faithful old Mike the Meter. I don't think he'll be going away anytime soon. Well, that's it for now. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up so that YouTube will promote it to other diabetics seeking answers. And consider subscribing to this channel and then click that bell icon so you'll be notified every time we post a new video. God bless. See you again soon.